Welcome back to the Balancing Act podcast. I'm Andy Tempty. On the Balancing Act, we talk to business leaders and industry experts to explore the balancing acts we play in our professional lives and learn about the events that put rocket boosters behind their career success. Today, we have Fred Cary joining us. Fred is the CEO of IdeaPros, which is an entrepreneurship educator and incubator. So we'll be focusing today's discussion on founders and startups. Welcome to the show, Fred.
I'm really happy to be here. I'm excited to get this thing rolling.
Very good. Well, I ask this question of all my guests, Fred. Before we get started, what's your story?
Wow. Well, I've been an entrepreneur all my life, and people have asked me, like, what was the inspiration to start down that path? Well, the inspiration was I didn't think anybody would have me. And so, I needed to blaze my own course, and that really suited me well. I wasn't very successful working for others, and I know a lot of your audience may experience that once in a while where you have your own managers taking your ideas and turning them into theirs. And that was not the environment for me. So I became an entrepreneur. I started 10 different companies. I ended up taking 2 of them public and had 2 others acquired by public companies. I have one now called Imagine Communications. It's still private, but does close to $1 billion a year in revenue. And I started IdeaPros 5 or 6 years ago to try to give back and to help the entrepreneurs that are the outsiders in the world, which are almost all of them.
Fantastic. We all have this imposter syndrome that we walk around with, or at least some version of it. So you helping entrepreneurs see the path forward and through their own blockers, that is really cool. Fred, if you had one event in your life that was a key accelerant, what would that be?
A key accelerant to my career?
Yeah.
I think a key accelerant was when I had one of my companies where I was just about to lose everything in the company. It was a company called Boxlot. And I, rather than take the loss, we had about $8 million invested into the company by then. I just really spent many, many sleepless nights figuring out how I could do it differently. And I really shifted the entire focus of the company into something that it wasn't before. And within less than a year, we got acquired for $125 million. And, that was a major failure that turned into a great result. Of course, the internet bust happened after that. So that $125 million became worth a lot less over time. But the reality is it taught me that just don't give up no matter what. There's always a way around it. And so that was a real boost for me going forward with all the other companies I started after that one.
In that moment, what was the thing that was lurking in the back of your mind that said, I can do this?
It was more all the people that trusted in me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that I can do this. It was that I have to do this. And I didn't have a choice. I had to do it. And so when you get to that level where it's not a choice, where it's like, I have to do this no matter what, then that becomes a pretty powerful motivator.
Yeah. Well, Fred, let's introduce our listeners to IdeaPros. Why does IdeaPros exist, and what sets it apart from other incubators and entrepreneurship education businesses?
Why IdeaPros exist. Some nights about 3 a.m. when I'm sweating and waking up all nervous, I ask myself the same question because it's really, really hard. What sets IdeaPros up or off from everybody else is that we're not actually an accelerator or incubator in the traditional sense. People come to us basically with raw ideas and a little sack of money, and we throw more fuel on that fire, and we literally are the entire team for that individual entrepreneur. We build everything. We use our best practices, and we create very highly differentiated companies out of raw ideas. Meanwhile, we're training that entrepreneur to really understand what it takes to go out there in the marketplace and dominate. So that's really how we're different. Frankly, before you either had to have $100,000 minimum to work with me, or you were dead to me, as Kevin O'Leary says all the time on Shark Tank. But the reality is we spent the last 9 months breaking out little smaller packages, starting it free. If you go to ideapros.com, you'll see free membership right there, and you get all sorts of new data every single week that I believe is very valuable that entrepreneurs can utilize. We've had, as I said before, we had 100,000 applications of people wanting to work with us, and we were only able to take 400 projects. And so we built this infrastructure to be able to help almost anybody that wants to be an entrepreneur.
That's fantastic news, especially for our listeners who, are disenchanted in their current position, have ideas and want to move forward, but don't really know where to get started. Fred, in the last few episodes of the show, I've been focusing on the value of coaching and mentorship. Other than funding, which is a primary blocker that we've discussed, as we talked about before, one of the biggest blockers of success to any entrepreneurial venture is the negative self-talk that swirls in a founder's mind. So, quick thought experiment. If you had a prospective founder sitting in front of you right now, what advice do you give to them to limit the impact of this negative self-talk?
I would tell them every one of us is screwed up repeatedly. You can go pick anybody that's your idol, go online and look for Elon Musk's failures or Elon Musk crying in an interview, and you're going to see him.
Yep.
Anybody, you're going to see it. Failure is a part of entrepreneurship, because through that failure, we find the right course. A lot of us have that self-doubt because we have this, as you said, imposter syndrome. Like, this shouldn't happen to me. I don't deserve this. Everybody else can make it. I'm not going to make it. The reality is everybody else failed more times than you. And you got to go up there and keep going. Even the young woman from Canva, that's a billionaire now. Canva got turned down by over 100 venture capital firms before she found one that believed in her. And now it's an extraordinarily valuable multi-billion-dollar organization. We've all had crap thrown on us over and over again. Airbnb, they couldn't raise $150,000 at a $1.5 million valuation. Look that up on YouTube, because generally one of two things. Number one, they didn't believe, no investor believed that people would allow strangers to live in their home with them. And number two, people thought it wasn't a big enough marketplace. And now one of every $1,500 that gets spent around the world goes to Airbnb. So we've all had failures, and it's working your way through those failures to find the success. That's what I would tell any of them.
Yeah. What about the little 90-degree turn here? But what about the folks who are sitting out there? They're punching away at their idea, but it's just not coming fast enough. The folks who have seen all the overnight success stories, and that success isn't coming fast. What would you tell them?
Well, first thing I would tell them is there is no overnight success stories. The ones that we think are overnight success stories are companies that have lost their butt for 10 years. Companies like Google, Amazon didn't make a profit for 15 years. There's a lot of companies out there that we look at these big, huge successes and really had to go through that same struggle. That's the number one thing. The number two thing is, if things aren't going fast enough, you're probably not working hard enough. And that's why it's not happening, because we get half pregnant. We're in there, we're trying to keep our day job. We want to keep our weekends and go fishing or play ball or take the kids somewhere. And entrepreneurship is a 24/7 deal. So if things aren't moving fast enough for you, two things are happening in that regard. You're not working hard enough, or you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
We can fix both of those, by the way.
Yes. Well, Fred, before we cut to a quick break, it wouldn't be the Balancing Act podcast without discussing a balancing act. What's the most important balancing act that you have to play when you're working with a startup founder?
I have to be able to encourage them while at the same time being a taskmaster. It's very easy, as you pointed out so rightfully near the beginning of the show, this imposter syndrome. It's very easy for someone like that to be completely deflated when you're telling them they're not doing something well, or why didn't you try this, or how come this is taking so long? So if you can balance the way you communicate those things to them and prop them up at the same time, you can do this, you have to do this, just like I had to, then I think you're going to go somewhere. If you don't balance those things, you're going to have a much bigger failure rate.
Yeah, it's got to be really hard. I'm teaching at now back in the classroom after a 20-year hiatus, and that balancing act of pushing hard and at the same time nurturing is very difficult. We're going to take a really, really quick commercial break. We'll be right back with Fred Cary. Has trust broken down in your organization? Learn how smooth workflows enable accountability and unlock trust to create long-term business success. Learn more in my new book, The Balanced Business, available today at Amazon.com and wherever books are sold. And we're back with Fred Cary talking about the world of business startups and entrepreneurship. In your experience, Fred, with founders and startups, what's the number one misstep that you see them make in their quest for success?
The number one misstep is shocking. And before I tell you what it is, I'll ask you this. We talked about sports earlier on. We can play sports. Like, if I told you that I wanted you to coach a team for me, and you asked me, like, what sport is it? And I didn't know. What are the rules? I don't know. How many players do I get? I don't know. Who are the opponents and what are their weak spots and their strong points? I don't have a clue. There's an audience. Yeah, there's an audience. What do we do to get them on our side? I don't know. That sounds ludicrous. That's the number one failure point of new entrepreneurial companies. They've created something there's no market for, because they don't know their market. They don't know the competitors. They don't know the size of the market opportunity, how to get people who are customers and make them your loyal advocates of your brand, how to spread that word, exploit the weaknesses of those well-positioned opponents of yours, and stay away from their strengths. We don't know any of those things. And so that's the thing that I see, and that statistics hold true. Not money, not knowing what you're doing is the big thing.
Yeah. What's your method for coaching them to do their homework and show up with a better understanding of where they're going?
Well, we did better than that. We created, using AI, proprietary AI tools, we created a system whereby we can tell people exactly what they need to do over the course of the next year. It's about a 70-page report. Think about it as kind of a market research report on steroids. It has everything in it, from your opponents, the go-to-market strategies, different tactics you can try, your pitch decks, how to talk to literally everything, when you're going to need hires and everything, all in one document that we can generate overnight. And that's really the Bible. So, and that's a couple of grand, by the way. It's not $2,000 standing in between you and success. It's not a large amount of money, but just do your homework. That's it. Because once you see the statistics and the growth rates, now you're starting to understand where you can go in that marketplace and what you can get. Don't be one of those people that come in to an investor meeting and says, it's a $10 billion market. If I capture 1%, we're going to be rich. No, nobody captures 1% of markets. You need to go in there and say, I'm going to come in there. I want to dominate, or at the very least be a significant player in this marketplace. Those are the ones that make it, and they make it because they've done their homework.
Yeah. Well, let's turn things to the positive. Can you share your favorite success story with us? And as you're sharing that, what was the key differentiator in either leadership tactics or strategy that helped drive that successful outcome?
Well, I think Imagine Communications is probably, one that stands out there, because when we started the company, it was me and a few Israeli engineers, and HD was just coming onto the marketplace. And the cable industry was pretty much screwed, because they had their infrastructure that they had could only support 1 megabit of data. and you needed 1.5 for just one HD signal. So we met with Comcast and basically proposed that we, through our own technology, could fix their issue and at least get them in HD, and without them changing any of their massive infrastructure. Basically, they said, you get $20 million worth of orders, so you can pull that off. And we left, and the engineers were, you're crazy. How can we do that? And I had the confidence in them. And within 6 months, we created a technology that not only allowed them to upgrade to HD, you could have 2 HD and 1 standard definition signal going through that same pipe that only used to hold 1 standard definition. And that's why that company became a huge success, and now employs on every habitable continent, and over something like 52% of all television households in the world have that technology somewhere in the system. Nobody's heard of Imagine Communications, but over half of the world is watching television, at least partially because of us.
Yeah, we get so fixated on the big brands and the big household names, but man, oh man, there are just so many opportunities for you to get involved and get your ideas out there. So
Yep.
thank you for sharing that. Any other? If I asked you what the second favorite success story is, what might it be?
Second one is it's actually the first one. Raising both of my daughters on my own. It's not a business thing, but it really showed me the importance of being a good human being, and that turned into being I think, really good parent. I get Mother's Day cards every year from them, and and it really helped me be a better leader. And I think that one of the fundamentals of my coaching and mentoring to others is, you're not going to be a great leader, you're not going to have a great company if you can't start being great at home. And so that's became a fundamental, foundational element of everything that I build and everything that I teach. So I think that one is probably not the answer you wanted, but it's very strong with me.
Absolutely in alignment, because when I was talking about the class that I'm teaching after a 20-year hiatus, the first, and my listeners have heard this before, but the first day of class, I walked in and the first words that I wrote on the whiteboard were self-love. And they're all looking around going, what is this guy talking about? And I said, you're all management students. If you don't like what's going on in here, there is no way that you're going to be able to help those around you when you get out there. So that answer was that was a fantastic answer, Fred.
Thank you.
Yeah. So a little bit of fun as we start to wrap up the show. 2 lightning round questions. Number 1, I give you access to a time machine. You can send a message to an earlier version of Fred Cary. What's the message? What previous version of yourself do you send it to?
I would take that time machine and I'd go back one day. And I'd talk to myself of yesterday and say, did you cherish every moment? Did you live for the moment? Did you live yesterday as if that was going to be your last day? Did you do something extraordinary, some little extraordinary thing? Because we all want extraordinary lives, but we don't do those little extraordinary things on a daily basis. Did you do what you should do to be an extraordinary human being? If you didn't, get your together and do it, because I'm waiting here one day later and I want a better yesterday, and only you can make that happen.
Fred, you are the first guest that has taken the little time machine and just wound it back a day, and it's such a poignant answer. Thank you so much for sharing that. In that vein, we're all works in progress. What are you focused on right now in your personal journey of growth?
I'm starting to focus on what I've told everybody not to do. So I'm going to have to alter my script a little bit, because my focus for the last few years has been, if you're working hard enough at what you do, there's no real need for work-life balance, because it all becomes one beautiful thing. but that's a very elusive goal and incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to find and manage all those other orbs of your life that are circling around all the time you're spending on work. So for me right now, what I'm really trying to manage is let go. You don't have to answer every text the second it happens. You don't have to look at 57 emails every 15 minutes. In fact, I turned my notifications off for a lot of the things that I have, and finding times in the day where I can just take a breather and not do anything. And that's been really hard for me because I'm like a 4 to 5 hour sleeper at night because I want to get up. If I wake up at 3 in the morning, I'm screwed because I'm immediately thinking about 10 different things that need answers to. So finding this way to balance myself out a little bit and step back a little bit, that's what my big goal is right now.
Yeah, I use yoga to do that work, and it's very important work, even if it's just a few minutes out of every day. Really appreciate that.
Have you? One thing, if you don't mind, that I do. In fact, on my Instagram page, I have over 500,000 followers on Instagram. It's an official Fred Cary, Cary. And I have pinned my very first post is kind of the morning routine. And to your yoga point, I always say, take the first hour and a half, 2 hours of every morning to focus on the most important thing, which is you. Focus on you first to get yourself ready for the day before, focus on the business of Fred instead of the business of business, and get yourself together. And I'll work out, I'll do meditation, I do affirmations. I'll read a paragraph or a chapter, whatever I want to read, and then I go to work. And by that time, I'm refreshed and rejuvenated. And I love the fact that you do yoga. I think that's a really good because you can accomplish 5 or 6 of those things all in one subject. You don't do yoga in a chair, do you?
No, not yoga in a chair.
My Italian cousin, when I last visited them, I work out like 90 minutes a day, 5 days a week. And he's like, I started doing yoga and let me show it to you. And he's showing me, and it's a lady in the chair. And I'm like, whoa, if you keep practicing, pretty soon you'll be able to do it with a whole dining room set. So good. I'm glad you do the real thing.
Yeah, I'm a continuous improvement guy. So I actually do my yoga while I'm making my breakfast.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So
hopefully you have scrambled eggs every day because.
No, it's oatmeal most every morning, and the 3 minutes while it's in the microwave, I'm planking, and then I go back and forth. I know I'm a goofball, but it's a lot of fun.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, a 3-minute plank is not easy.
It is not, especially when you follow it up with 20 or so push-ups. So yeah. Fred, what's next for you? Where can people learn more about you and IdeaPros?
Yeah, what's next for me is I've been trying to find ways to get myself out in front of more people at once because I'm becoming, as I said, I had to turn off almost everything because it really has become overwhelming. So what's next for me is kind of one-to-many deals. I have a couple of things that I'm doing that are, I think, really good. I have something that's called Pitchcraft. I do twice a month, all free, couple of hours, teaches people how to really think of their stories and build pitch decks, not like Y Combinator and what they tell you, build ones that are really around storytelling. That's been really powerful. And by the way, that's free. It's pitch.ideapros.com. It's, as I said, it's twice a month. So I'm doing things like that where it can be me in front of 100 people instead of one-on-one. So that's big for me. And now we're going to start doing a lot of webinars and things as well. So that's the next generation of me.
Excellent. Well, we will include a link to IdeaPros in the show notes. We are so happy that you were able to impart your significant knowledge to our listeners today, and I encourage everyone to look up Fred Cary and what he's done and what he's up to. So thanks for being on the show, Fred.
Thanks. It was a lot of fun.
create. Well, my name's Andy Tempty. This is the Balancing Act podcast. You can find us on all the major streaming services. Please like, subscribe, rate, and most importantly, share this public good with your friends and neighbors. We'll see you next time on the Balancing Act.